You know that moment, I think we all do, that flash of recognition when you catch yourself doing the exact thing you swore you never would. The way you react, maybe shutting down or getting suddenly angry, and then someone says it.
Ah, the verdict.
Yeah, you sound exactly like your mother, or that's your father all over again.
And it lands hard, like an accusation, doesn't it? Like something you're doomed to repeat.
Exactly. But today, we're not looking at that feeling as, proof you failed. We're actually going underground.
Taking a deep dive.
Yeah, like an archaeological dig into the soul, really. To unpack what psychoanalysis, specifically Freud, called the unconscious.
Right. We want to explore how those survival strategies you developed as a kid, the rules you figured out to get by in your first home, how they're still, well, running the show now, often in ways that cause pain.
And understand why. Why we repeat the very things that hurt us in the first place.
That's the core question.
Because that compulsion, that pull,
Yeah.
it feels so illogical, You can read all the books, promise yourself you'll change, but then stress hits and bam, you revert.
Well, to get at that, we have to look at this huge hidden space beneath our everyday awareness, the Freudian unconscious. What is it, really?
Yeah, what is it?
Think of it as a reservoir. It holds everything we couldn't afford to know or feel or even remember consciously at the time.
So not just old memories gathering dust.
No, not at all. This is live energy. It's the psychological space where the versions of our parents we internalized, Freud might call them the ancient gods, in our psyche, they still hold influence. They're setting the basic rules for how we operate.
And the blueprint for that space gets laid down really early, right? In childhood, when everything feels life or death.
Absolutely. A child, especially if the environment feels unpredictable or unsafe, is constantly scanning, trying to crack the code.
The code being, how do I stay safe? How do I stay loved?
Exactly. And often the child faces this terrible, impossible bind. They learn a kind of brutal internal logic for survival. Like what?
If I show my need, I might get rejected or abandoned. If I cry, maybe I'll be shamed. If I say what I really think, I'll end up alone.
Wow. So the safest bet becomes,
To be loved, I have to make parts of myself disappear.
that's heavy. So the real self, the anger, the fear, the just raw neediness, it has to be buried, locked away.
Buried alive, essentially. And this isn't just forgetting, like losing your keys. It takes enormous ongoing psychological effort.
It's active.
Very active. It's what Freud termed repression, or Verdrängung in German. It's a forceful, constant pushing down of feelings that feel too dangerous.
So the kid doesn't just forget being angry.
No, they lock it down. Because showing that anger or that vulnerability felt like it would literally threaten their connection, their survival. It's a brilliant survival strategy for a child.
But the bill comes due in adulthood.
Absolutely.
Right.
And what happens to all that feeling, that raw stuff, if it can't come out in words or tears, where does it go?
It finds another language. It translates into, well, somatic code. The body speaks what the mind had to silence.
So that's the connection to physical symptoms.
Precisely. That persistent knot of anxiety in your stomach, the tension headache that lives in your shoulders, maybe shallow breathing, or panic attacks that seem to come out of nowhere.
No logical trigger.
Right. Freud saw these conversion symptoms, as he called them, as the psyche trying to communicate through the body what the conscious, adapted mind couldn't allow itself to know.
So you think you're fine, just stressed, but your body is basically shouting the words the child wasn't allowed to speak.
In a way, yes.
Right.
And this leads us right back to those patterns we see playing out in adult life, in relationships. We carry that buried feeling forward.
And it shapes our choices.
We see it all the time, don't we? When you find yourself drawn to partners who are emotionally unavailable, kind of repeating that distance you felt growing up.
Or freezing up when you get praised. Like success feels dangerous.
Or snapping at your own kids for having the very needs you were taught were unacceptable in yourself.
Okay, but why? If it's so painful, why doesn't the logical adult part of our brain just stop it? How does this old pattern override conscious choice?
Because, and this is crucial, you're not failing, you're remembering.
Remembering how.
But not with your thinking brain necessarily. It's happening in your nervous system, your emotional responses, your muscle memory. What Freud called the repetition compulsion Wiederholungszwang. It's a drive, not just a bad habit.
A compulsion to repeat. It sounds almost like wanting to suffer. How is that different from just, destructive pattern?
The unconscious intention is key. It's not seeking suffering for its own sake. The unconscious is trying to recreate the scene of the original wound.
Why on earth?
Not to suffer again, but to finally master it this time. It's an attempt to rewrite the past in the present.
So marrying someone cold is like unconsciously thinking, this time I'll make them warm. This time I'll get the love I didn't get then.
Exactly. If I'm good enough, loving enough, this time I can thaw them. And by thawing them, the fantasy is you retroactively heal the original wound with the parent. The drive is toward healing, but the method often backfires because, well, you can't change the past through a stand-in.
There's that story you mentioned about Daniel.
Right.
Really successful guy at work, but at home,
Yeah.
volatile,
Yeah.
stormy.
Yes, Daniel. He hated that volatility in himself, which was so unlike the quiet, steady father he idolized but also felt distant from. He kept having this dream.
The one in his father's study.
Right. He is a child, his father's there but silent, shadowed. And on the desk, there's this gleaming key.
The key. What did you think it opened? He became obsessed with it, right?
He did. And after a lot of struggle in his analysis, really fighting the process, projecting his own anger, he finally realized the key was for a locked drawer in that desk.
And inside the drawer.
He broke down when he finally voiced the fear. He said, I thought I wanted to open it to find answers, but the truth, the awful truth is, I thought I was what was locked inside that drawer.
Oh, wow. He felt like he was the secret, the problem that had to be locked away for things to run smoothly.
That's the heart of the tragedy in repetition. We repeat because some fundamental part of our early experience is unfinished. The child's original need or fear or rage, it was never fully seen, never met, never soothed.
And the unconscious doesn't do time.
Not linear time, no. For the unconscious, the past isn't past. It's happening now. So we keep reenacting the wound, unconsciously hoping that this time, the missing response, the missing piece, will finally arrive.
That insight, the past, is present in our symptoms that feels huge. So if that buried self, the one locked in the drawer, is pushing to be known, the mind must build defenses, right? A fortress to keep it contained.
Absolutely. Masterpieces of psychological engineering built for survival back then. But now they often form the bars of our cage.
Let's talk about those defenses. Projection is a big one.
Huge. Projection is like the great escape hatch. When the internal pressure of feelings like shame or rage or maybe unbearable self-criticism gets too intense, the psyche finds a way to put it outside, onto someone else.
So we end up fighting the world.
To avoid fighting the war inside ourselves, yes.
That explains some road rage, maybe. Or constantly feeling like your boss is critical or your partner is angry.
It can be that. You attribute your own unacceptable feelings to others. The bad feeling isn't in me, it's out there, in them. You might even unconsciously provoke people to act in ways that confirm your projection, making the cycle continue.
Wow. Okay. And the other one you mentioned, identification with the aggressor. That sounds intense.
It's perhaps the most intimate and often tragic defense. This is where the child, maybe terrified by a parent's anger or crushed by their demands eventually, merges with that very source of terror.
Merges. How?
If you can't escape the source of fear, becoming it offers two things unconsciously. One, a sense of power, I'm not the victim anymore, and two, paradoxically, a desperate bid for closeness. If I am just like you can't abandon me, or maybe you'll finally love me.
So the child who was terrified of shouting
Becomes the adult who shouts. The one crushed by criticism becomes hypercritical themselves. The unconscious logic is something like, if I wear your armor, maybe you'll accept me. Or at least leave me alone.
This maps onto Freud's model of the mind, right? The different parts fighting it out internally.
Exactly. You can see the conflict playing out between the ego, the ich, which is the part that adapted, that manages reality, and the defenses.
A performer.
In a way, yes. Then there's the id, the ist, which is that primal core of raw need, desire, rage, the part that got buried.
And the superego. That's the judge.
The Uber-ish, yes. It's the internalized voice of parents, society, authority, but it's often more than just a conscience. It can become this harsh, critical judge.
Constantly whispering.
You're selfish. You're too much. You're just like them, meaning the parents' negative traits, and that's the worst thing you can be. The superego's rigidity and shame often fuel these repetitive loops.
And sometimes this repetition, it isn't even about wanting to suffer. It's almost like unconscious loyalty. We keep the pattern going because stopping feels like betraying the family system.
That loyalty is a powerful force, and it's a big reason why we run into resistance, that deep psychological pushback against becoming aware.
So part of us doesn't want to know the truth, doesn't want to heal,
Resistance is like the guardian at the gate of repression. It protected you as a child by helping you not fully register how painful or scary things might have been. It kept you functional. But now it keeps you trapped by preventing you from facing the very truths that could lead to change. It's the part that insists, don't look there.
And all this energy, the needs, the anger, the defenses, the resistance, it's all fueled by what Freud called libido, which isn't just about sex, right?
Not primarily, no. Libido is the fundamental life force. The drive to connect, to desire, to create, to be seen, to feel alive. When that fundamental drive is consistently blocked or unmet in childhood,
It doesn't just disappear.
no, it gets distorted. It has to find some outlet. So it might morph into things like obsessive perfectionism or chronic self-criticism or maybe rigid control. The need for love doesn't vanish. It gets channeled into behaviors deemed safer, but often exhausting, like relentless achievement or trying to please everyone just to get some sense of validation or existence.
Okay, this feels like it connects directly to the engine driving repetition in our current lives. Transference.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
Transference. It's basically the constant, usually unconscious act of taking those old emotional blueprints, the patterns, the expectations, the feelings from early relationships, and overlaying them onto people in your present.
It happens all the time.
Every day. Your boss isn't actually your critical father, but your nervous system might react as if they are, prompting you to either shrink and people pleaser or maybe push back harder than the situation warrants.
So we're often not really seeing the person in front of us clearly. We're seeing ghosts.
We're interacting with the ghosts they stir up in us. We cast people in roles from our past without even realizing it. But here's the flip side, the potential.
There's potential there.
Yes. Transference isn't only pathology, it's also a path. The repetition acted out with a new person becomes this unconscious ritual, a chance maybe for the inner child to try again. Will you respond differently this time? Will you see my need? It offers a possibility, often in therapy, but sometimes in life, for that old wound to be met with a new, healing response.
Which leads back to the symptom, the anxiety, the anger, the self-sabotage. It's not just noise to be silenced.
It's the return of the repressed. It's the unconscious finally getting your attention, saying, hey, I'm still here. You weren't allowed to feel me then, but I need to be heard now.
So the panic attack when you step into the spotlight
is maybe the voice of the part of you that learned visibility equals danger. The symptom isn't the core problem. The silence, the parts of your life you couldn't live because of that repression, that's the deeper issue. The symptom is the messenger.
We've definitely dug deep today. It's a lot to take in. The weight of this emotional inheritance. It feels important to say, you are not your parents, but maybe you're speaking their language psychologically, wearing armor passed down through generations.
It's inheritance, absolutely, not a sign of weakness or failure. And maybe the final thought is this. That repetition, that pattern you hate, it's not necessarily your prison. It could be pointing the way.
A path.
Yes, your unconscious might be using repetition to flag exactly where you got stuck, where you stopped being fully yourself and started performing the old script. It repeats not to torture you, but to show you precisely where the wound is still active.
Freud talked a lot about witnessing, didn't he? Not always fixing immediately, but bearing witness.
The power of being truly seen.
So maybe the final thought for you listening is this. Think about that child part of you, the one still waiting. Maybe not for revenge, maybe not even for an apology anymore, but just to be witnessed, really seen. What might shift even just a tiny bit if you could allow that child's grief or its rage or its need, the feelings that had to be locked away. Just a moment of acknowledgement, just for yourself.
It's the beginning, perhaps. The slow, sometimes painful, but ultimately freeing process of setting down that heavy inheritance.